Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we dig into different sources to pull out, well, the most useful and sometimes surprising bits of knowledge. We want to give you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. Today, we're looking at practical utility, really practical. We're stepping away from, the expensive specialized tools you think you need and looking at everyday household stuff. Our sources focus on a gardener's recent experience. They were transplanting these marigolds, totally overgrown, a real chore.
Right. Sounds like a job that needed doing for a while.
Exactly. And the task itself was overdue, but the way they solved it? Well, the solution came from the kitchen, believe it or not.
And that's really the core idea for you listening today. We're exploring how sometimes really affordable everyday items can actually work better than specialized, expensive gardening tools for certain jobs, maybe even common ones.
Okay, let's unpack that. This deep dive is honing in on two specific items from the kitchen drawer that completely, changed the game for this gardener.
Yeah, they found tools that work perfectly, not because of the label, but because of their shape, their material, their geometry.
Let's jump right in. The first kind of star of the show, a small cake slicer. And I want you to really picture this, not a big spatula, but that thin, often sort of triangular metal thing.
The pie server type thing.
Exactly. Usually pretty rigid stainless steel for getting under a slice of cake or pie.
Okay, it sounds a little absurd, doesn't it? Picking up a dessert tool instead of a sturdy garden trowel.
It does. But think about the actual physics of what you're doing when transplanting.
Well, yeah. The usual hand trowel, it's built for digging, for moving soil in bulk. It's curved, right, to scoop things up.
But when you've got this dense root ball and it needs to fit just so into a small pot, bulk isn't what you need. You need precision. You need clean edges.
Right. Volume can actually be your enemy there.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The specific advantage this cake slicer offered was that precision. Your standard trowel, it's kind of chunky, rounded.
It can tear things up.
Exactly. It often rips or crushes those fine little roots when you're trying to separate them or, trim the root ball down to size.
But the cake slicer, because it's so thin and has that flat, rigid edge,
Yeah.
the gardener described it as performing root surgery.
Root surgery. I like that.
That's a real nugget here. Think about annuals like these marigolds. Their roots are fibrous, pretty delicate. They don't like being manhandled. The cake slicer, it's almost like a scalpel in this context. The metal is way thinner than a trowel, maybe less than a millimeter thick.
So less resistance.
Much less resistance going through the soil in roots. So the slice is clean. Minimal trauma to the plant.
And probably easier to handle too, right? Ergonomically.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, the handle on those things is usually short, right in line with the blade. So you get really direct force.
You're slicing, not just brute force, pushing a curved shovel shape through packed roots.
Precisely. Much more efficient. And the shape, that's critical too.
Yeah.
A lot of those slicers have a straight edge or maybe a slightly pointed tip, which lets you basically carve out a root mass that perfectly matches the shape of the new pot.
Ah, so it fits better.
And that's huge for the plant's health long term. If the root ball is cleanly sized and sits neatly in the pot, it'll establish much faster than one that's, been squashed in or damaged by a blunt tool.
Okay, so the cake slicer solves the root precision problem. But there's still that other headache with small pots, getting the soil in there neatly around the roots.
Oh yeah, the mess.
Which brings us to the second unexpected tool, a tall plastic water jar. You know that frustration, right? Tiny little pot, big bag of potting mix.
And your scoop is way too wide.
And half the soil ends up on the table, not in the pot.
Yeah, that spillage isn't just messy, it's wasted time, wasted soil. It really brings up that question. How do you get granular stuff into a small opening without making a mess?
Your standard garden scoop, it's built for speed, for volume, filling big containers.
Right. It's just the wrong tool geometry for precision work.
So the genius of using a plastic water jar, specifically a tall, narrow one, according to the source, it works in two ways. First, you scoop the mix with it. Simple enough.
Like any container.
But second, that narrow neck gives you what the source basically called optimal funneling geometry.
That's a great way to put it. It's absolutely right. Potting mix, it's crumbly. It's not like pouring liquid. You need a controlled pour.
If the opening's too wide.
It just dumps out everywhere.
Right.
But a tall jar with a narrower mouth, it creates this focused stream of soil.
So you can aim it.
Exactly. The gardener could lift the jar, tilt it just a bit, and get the soil right into that narrow gap between the root ball and the pot wall. Super precise.
And that gave them way better control over the amount going in, too, right? So you don't get that sudden overflow you get with a big scoop.
Yes, you can add a bit, tap it down, add a bit more, layer by layer. Proper potting technique, just easier.
It's such a clear example of function over form, isn't it? A cheap plastic jar becomes this, like, high-precision soil dispenser.
Totally. It's strong enough to scoop light potting mix, and its shape is arguably much better suited for this specific task than any fancy small gardening funnel you might buy.
Why?
Because the jar happens to prioritize directional control. Most garden tools prioritize bulk movement or digging strength.
So, okay, we've got the cake slicer for precision root work and the tall water jar for spill-free soil pouring. What's the bigger lesson here about tools in general?
Well, if we connect these dots, it really proves a key efficiency principle. You need to stop thinking about what a tool is called and start thinking about the specific mechanical action you need to perform.
Like slicing or funneling.
Exactly. This discovery just confirms you don't always need expensive, specialized gear if you actually analyze the task itself.
It really challenges that assumption we see everywhere, right? In gardening, cooking, cycling, that the purpose-built, often pricey tool is automatically the best. The source really stressed that these kitchen items weren't just okay. They were actually more suitable for these specific repetitive jobs.
And that makes you wonder about tool design itself, doesn't it? Why don't they make a root slicer that looks like a cake server?
Yeah, why not?
Well, often it's about market segments, material costs. Garden tools are generally built tough for multiple uses, needing thicker metal to handle rocks or heavy leverage.
Right. A delicate slicer might break if you used it for digging.
Probably. So a thin, precise tool, even if it's perfect for delicate work like potting marigolds, might be seen as too fragile for the general garden market, even though it's highly useful for certain common tasks.
That's a really powerful insight. You're saying the specialization we do see often favors durability over, let's say, optimal precision for these smaller common jobs.
It seems that way sometimes.
So it encourages us to look at things differently, to think, okay, I need to slice cleanly. What object slices cleanly? Or I need to funnel precisely. What funnels precisely? Regardless of its original purpose.
Exactly. It boosts efficiency, makes things more accessible. You might need fewer specialized tools cluttering up your shed if you realize you already own something that does a specific part of the job better.
Okay, before we wrap up this deep dive on utility, there was one more crucial point in the gardener's notes. We need to switch gears a bit here, from efficiency to safety.
Yes. This is really important, especially with common plants we might take for granted. The gardener specifically mentioned that while handling all those overgrown marigolds, they were reminded that the sap of common marigolds, particularly if you're cutting them back heavily, can actually contain compounds, thiophene, things like that, that might irritate the skin.
Contact dermatitis from marigolds.
It's possible for some people, yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget because they look so cheerful and harmless, right? Bright orange flowers, you don't immediately think mild irritant.
No, you don't.
So that specific fact is a great reminder about, potential hidden issues even in everyday garden plants.
Absolutely. And it underlines that basic rule we should always follow.
Many common plants, think rhubarb leaves, daffodils, even some popular houseplants like certain philodendrons, they have toxic or irritating parts. If you skip wearing gloves just because you're only handling flowers or just potting for a few minutes, well, that's poor risk management.
Even tiny amounts of sap or maybe bacteria in the soil.
It can cause problems.
Yeah.
So the glove rule, it's universal. It's not just about thorns or blisters.
It's a physical barrier.
Right, a barrier against substances you might not even realize are irritants, like the sap in those marigolds. Whether you're slicing roots with a cake server or just moving soil, protection comes first.
Always.
Because, honestly, the hassle of dealing with skin irritation or an infection, it completely outweighs the tiny inconvenience of putting on a decent pair of gloves. It just lets you enjoy the gardening without any nasty surprises.
This has been genuinely fascinating. We took apart this simple gardening chore and found these, brilliant workarounds. A cake slicer becomes a precision root tool.
And a plastic jar transforms into a spill-proof soil dispenser.
It really shows that utility can definitely trump specialization sometimes. Analyzing the function, not the label.
Absolutely. We've shown that effective tool use is all about understanding the mechanical action needed. So the real challenge for you listening now is to take this idea and run with it.
Okay.
Now that you know this, what ordinary things sitting around your house, maybe in the kitchen, maybe in the garage, what might be the secret key to making your next chore easier? Maybe, I don't know, an old basting brush is perfect for gently sowing tiny seeds. Or a sturdy wooden spoon is the ideal tamper for new seedlings. The answer's probably already there, just waiting for you to see its true function.